very, very long. But it's a beautiful county. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad y'all are here, and I hope that I can teach y'all something that you don't already know. But then again, this is an S.C.V. camp, so most of y'all probably know at least some, if not all, of what I'm getting ready to tell y'all about. Flags of the Confederate States of America. If I was here to talk about every flag from every brigade, we'd be here for about 3.5 weeks. So I don't intend to do that. So there are going to be some flags that you might know about that aren't going to be in this presentation. This was originally a two-parter that took up about an hour and a half for both parts, so I have shortened it drastically to make it to where I can do it in one camp meeting. And I have included as much information as I can. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, but I'm going to breeze through it at a decent pace, and I hope y'all learn something. And we're going to start off with part one, which is flags of secession, the states, and national flags. Flags of secession. I got two of them here. The first one is the South Carolina secession flag. On December 20th, 1860, when South Carolina seceded from these United States, this flag here was raised over the Customs House in Charleston. The color red represented the fighting spirit. The crescent moon was a symbol used during the Revolution from South Carolina troops, and the star represented sovereignty of the independent state of South Carolina. To the best of my knowledge, and I put that because I have no earthly idea if it's still there after the 2015 flag lowering, but at that point in time it was in the Confederate Museum down there. If I ever make it back to Charleston, I'll be sure to check see if it's still there. Bonnie blue flag. Boy, this one's got a lot of history to it. Most people don't know all the history. I didn't until I started researching it, but this Bonnie blue flag had its beginnings in 1810 in Spanish-controlled territory of West Florida. West Florida consisted of all of Louisiana east of the Mississippi River, as well as modern-day southern Mississippi, Alabama, and even parts of what is currently Florida. The residents of West Florida were not happy with the way Spain was treating them because of how much freedom they saw their neighbors of the United States had. So they got a little riled up. Oh, this right here is West Florida, right down there at the bottom. So on September 11th, 1810, Spain began to raise troops to force the West Floridians to comply to their demands. And as any good Southerner did, they said, not today, that's not happening. They raised up a troop of cavalry, put this flag ahead of it, and marched on the capital of West Florida and gained their independence. October 27th, 1810, U.S. President James Madison declared his intent to annex the Republic of West Florida, and by December it was occupied by U.S. troops. It only lived for about 3 months, but it gave us a flag that has lived for eternity. Soon after that, Texas gained its independence, and after they avenged their fallen brethren at the Alamo, and they formed the Republic of Texas, and they needed a flag. So on December 10th, 1836, the president of the Republic of Texas, Sam Houston, officially made this flag the flag of the Republic of Texas. Bonnie blue flag with a golden star instead of a white star, and it remained the flag of the Republic of Texas until the 25th of January, 1839, when the current Texas flag took over, and the current Texas flag has remained since. But the reason that us old Confederates know about the Bonnie blue flag is because what happened in Mississippi. When Mississippi seceded from the United States of America, a Bonnie blue flag, a giant one, was raised over the Capitol building in Jackson. In attendance for this event was Harry McCarthy, who was so inspired by this sight of a giant blue flag with a single white star being raised in defiance to tyranny, he wrote a song about it. It was appropriately called the Bonnie blue flag, and it told the story of how the states seceded. It was the second most popular song in the Confederate Army. Take a wild guess at what was the most popular. Anybody knew all that about that Bonnie blue flag? Yeah, I did. You got it? Smart man back there. All right, flags of the states. Most people leave flags of the states out of presentations, which is exactly why I tried to include it, because I didn't know much about it until I started researching. South Carolina. As I stated before, the crescent moon was a well-liked symbol in South Carolina because of its Revolutionary War history. Also well-liked due to the palmetto trees the palmetto trees because of the palmetto logs used to build Fort Moultrie in 1776. And this flag right here was officially adopted on January 26, 1861, and it lasted a whopping 2 days. They didn't make their mind, maybe they were drunk, I don't know. But 2 days later, they changed it to this one. It is not that much different, honestly, from the last one, but it is different nonetheless, and it has lasted a good long while. And that previous flag, the 2-day South Carolina flag, is about the most popular flag I can think of that only lasted 2 days, because every time I try to go buy it, nobody ever had it in stock. Mississippi. As I stated before, Mississippi seceded from the Union January 9, 1861, and on that day they put up a Bonnie blue flag. January 26th, the Mississippi State Legislature unofficially adopted this flag as the new state flag of Mississippi. It contains a square Bonnie blue flag as its canton, a magnolia tree on a white field, and the end of the flag was with red fringe. It's just solid red in this picture, but picture it with fringe, because I couldn't find a picture of it having fringe to put in here. In the excitement of secession, the Mississippi legislature forgot to officially adopt this as their flag. They quickly solved that problem, though, on March 30th, 1861. And for the remainder of this war of northern aggression, and up until 1894, depending on who you talk to, this would be the flag of Mississippi. Soon after the war, this flag was considered null and void by some. Because it was adopted by a secession convention, I say otherwise. But in 1894, January 22nd, 1894, Mississippi Governor John Marshall Stone sent a letter to Mississippi legislature stating that legally they did not have a flag. They cured that problem quick, fast, and in a hurry when Governor Stone signed this flag into law. Y'all ought to know this flag because it's always wrapped in controversy. Governor Stone, who was a Confederate veteran, told his daughter the reason why their new flag contained the Army of Northern Virginia battle flag. His daughter stated that reason in 1924 at the annual Mississippi Convention of the UDC. This is her quote as to what her daddy said and why they wanted the battle flag as the canton. Quote, "My father loved the memory of the valor and courage of those brave men who wore the gray. He told me that it was a simple matter for him to design the flag because he wanted to perpetuate in a legal and lasting way that dear battle flag under which so many of our people had so gloriously fought." I ain't see a darn thing about race anywhere in that quote. Of course, they'll tell you otherwise now. Florida. They seceded January 10th, 1861, and they immediately went to work adopting a flag. This was not a success. So the governor decided to let the military department deal with it. And the military department, January 13th, 1861, came up with this flag. That represented Florida till September that year when this flag was adopted. This flag would be the flag of Florida until soon after the war, when the Reconstruction government in Florida changed the state flag. It was changed again in 1900 to a flag consisting of a red St. Andrew's cross with a white background and the Florida seal in the center. The seal in the center would change in 1985, however the red St. Andrew's cross would remain. God bless Florida, they kept the cross. Alabama. Prior to Alabama seceding, a group of lovely ladies from the Capitol, and it's always the ladies that make the flag. God bless them, we love them, but they're the ones that made them. January 11th, 1861, they seceded and they raised the flag over their capital. Unlike many flags of its time, this one was two-sided. That's the front. That's the back. The Latin phrase translates to "don't touch me," meaning that Alabama was just about fed up with the U.S. government using their cotton to finance northern expansion. Boy, howdy, I can explain that for about 25 minutes. But I won't, because we're here to talk about flag. As it was with Mississippi, this flag was considered null and void after the war, and it was not until the 16th of February, 1895, that the current Alabama flag was adopted, which is just simply a red St. Andrew's cross on a white field. Very similar to the Florida state flag, except without the Florida seal. Georgia. This is the secession flag of Georgia. January 19th, 1861. When Georgia voted to secede from the Union, they made this flag. It is historically accurate as such. It's red. I've seen online several of them. You can find them as blue. The blue one was for a Georgia militia, not the state of Georgia. This flag was the flag of Georgia until 1879, when a Confederate veteran adopted a flag very similar to the first national flag. That flag, the one that was similar to the first national, represented Georgia in some form from 1879 to 1956, when this flag was adopted as the new Georgia flag. This flag was wrapped in controversy back in 2001 when it was changed, claiming the flag to be racist because of the battle flag. In the words of the men who voted to make this flag official in 1956, they said the reason for the battle flag being incorporated into this flag was because it was the centennial of, well, they probably said Civil War. I'm going to call it what it is, War of Northern Aggression. Unfortunately, in 2001, the flag was changed, and it was changed in 2003. Nobody's ever happy for this flag. The current Georgia flag since 2003. Some of y'all may recognize this flag. Some of y'all may recognize what it really kind of actually is. The 1956 flag was deemed racist because of its Confederate ties, but for some reason all the residents of Georgia are all right with this one. I would rather the one with the battle flag remain, but I think this is really kind of funny. I'll tell you a story. I work for General Motors for a living, and our regional training center is in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm sitting there in the training center taking a test, and I don't know what the answer is to this question. It's asking me some stuff about hybrids that I don't know. I look up, and I look at the flagpoles outside, and gust of wind comes across. I said, doggone, they flying the oh, that's the Georgia flag. I just think that's kind of funny. They took one that was 2/3 Confederate. It offended them, so they removed it and put one that's 7/8 Confederate. Oh. See, sometimes ignorance is funny. Most of the time it just makes you mad, but sometimes it's funny. Louisiana. They seceded the 26th of January, 1861, and raised this flag over the Capitol. It is exactly like the current state flag, except this one has no wording and the current one does. This flag was used until February 11, 1861, when Louisiana adopted a new flag, this one. This flag has references to the U.S., obviously because of the stripe pattern, France because of the colors of the stripes, and Spain because of the gold star. This flag was used until the end of the war, when the pelican flag from the previous slide resumed its duties as the official flag of Louisiana. Texas. God bless Texas. As I stated earlier, this flag is the flag of the Republic of Texas. On January 25th, 1839, it was designated that flag, and it was used as the flag of Texas through the War of Northern Aggression. God bless Texas. The bonnie blue flag is still alive and well in the canton of this well-loved state flag. And boy, howdy, I didn't realize how well-loved it was until I drove through Texas going to the National Convention last year. And I love Texas, because that's probably the only state left in the Union where a good portion of its citizens are more proud to be Texans than they are Americans. If we could get half of Virginia to be like that, I think we'd be on the right track. Because I'm driving along through Houston, and I'm looking at these car dealerships. They got 80-foot poles. They got 2 of them, U.S. flag, Texas flag. That's the God bless Texas. I don't know I've ever seen a Virginia flag that big. They got them at every dealership in Texas. Oh, we need to send some people there to come and take some lessons in state pride. Speaking of Virginia, a flag that hits close to home. The Commonwealth of Virginia did not have a flag until April 30th, 1861. The Virginia legislature, I'm going to go ahead and call it the Confederate Virginia legislature, adopted this flag. It's just a simple flag. It used the seal from 1776 as the center, and it was on a blue field. This flag looks different than our flag now. The flag really hasn't changed. The rule for the flag is a blue flag with the Virginia seal. That hasn't changed. What's changed is the seal itself. What you're seeing is a artist rendering of an 1856 seal. The seal was redesigned in 1856. When Virginia seceded, the Virginia Convention adopted a flag, and they used the front side, because there is a back side to the state seal. They used the front side as the seal and put it on the flag with white fringe. This is a redone representation of the 28th Virginia Company B's flag presented to them in 1861. The actual flag is currently at the vault in the former Museum of the Confederacy. And if I recommended people spend money there, I'd say go see it. But I no longer recommend people spend money there. So there are many other regiments that use something similar, but this is the most popular. However, there sure is a lot of cool stuff locked in the vaults. All these Virginia flags right here. I'm pretty sure every single one of them is in the possession of the Museum of the Confederacy. It has been overrun by Yankees. Sometime during the war, the governor of Virginia had another flag made to replace the one that was worn and flying over the Capitol. I've yet to figure out why this one has a different seal. Technically, it is correct. The description of the seal never changed. The artist looked at it different. The description of the seal says such and such and such, and it has to meet those qualifications. It doesn't say that she has to be looking in a certain direction. So this is still on display. Fairly certain it's still on display at the Capitol Museum in Richmond, but that is the actual flag that was taken off of the Capitol in Richmond when Richmond fell in 1865. Some Yankees took it down, and I think it ended up in Massachusetts for a good long while, and then the descendants of the soldiers who stole it sent it back to Virginia.
Antiques ended up in Massachusetts.
Do what?
A lot of our antiques ended up in Massachusetts.
Ain't that the truth, though? I will say one thing, though. At least some of them descendants were courteous enough to send some of it back. The soldiers might have stole it, but a lot of the stuff that has come back, like in the original days of the Museum of the Confederacy, come from Yankee land. So at least their descendants, of course, you know, back in the 1920s, a Confederate veteran was still looked at as a hero, not a terrorist by everybody except our group. God bless them. Also, I just received this on Saturday. The S.C.V. is making these now.
Oh, cool.
This is a boat flag. They got this, and they also got a full-size one. This is obviously the one from 3 slides ago. Right there. That's the actual flag that they used to make this. I got this last weekend at the Confederate Flag Day in Oakwood. This is a pretty nice flag. It's not nylon like I was kind of hoping, because the price would suggest nylon. This is $20. The big one is $40. But I had flown the big one outside for about a month and a half in some pretty high winds for a couple of them days, and it didn't tear, it didn't do nothing wrong with it. So I'm proud to say that the S.C.V. is now selling this flag. I think Ron Moore told me that they've actually come in off the boat. So I believe that you can actually call the S.C.V. now and buy these flags. I don't know how long it'll take to get them. I'm going to pass it around just so y'all can look at it and feel the material. But I'm happy that they're actually making a historically correct.
I didn't see the small ones out there.
Well, I told Ron Moore like 3 weeks ago, I said, I want that flag. I'll be mad at you if you give it to somebody else.
No wonder I didn't see it.
But yeah, you saw me carrying or at least my lady was carrying the big one.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for them things to be mass produced. You can thank the executive director of the S.C.V. for making that happen, because he was a big driving force into getting the S.C.V. flag program up and running. This is the Yankee Virginia flag. When the seal was redesigned in 1856, when the Union broke away and formed a different Virginia government, they redesigned their flag, or redesigned their seal, stuffed it on a flag, and this is the ancestor of our current flag right here. It was redesigned in 1873, 1903, 1950, 66, 2005, and that's the current Virginia flag. That's what we call the reconstructed Virginia flag. North Carolina, May 20th, 1775. The Mecklenburg Resolve was issued, effectively declaring North Carolina's independence from Great Britain. May 20th, 1861, North Carolina voted to secede from these United States. These 2 dates are forever immortalized on this flag, which was adopted June 22nd, 1861. After the war was over, the North Carolina legislature voted to change this flag to what the current flag is. Tennessee, April 25th, 1861, the Tennessee legislature convened to discuss secession. During this session, a bill was introduced to adopt a state flag for Tennessee. It was proposed, keyword, to have the first national flag with the seal of Tennessee in place of the stars. The bill was not passed, and Tennessee would continue throughout the war with no flag. However, there were a few Tennessee regiments seen carrying this battle flag. I cannot find an original, but the book said they exist, so I included it. Missouri State Guard. Notice that does not say Missouri State. General Sterling Price was in command of the pro-Confederate Missouri State Guard at the onset of this war of northern aggression. Missouri as a state did not adopt a flag until well after the end of the war in 1913, but Sterling Price adopted this flag to use throughout all of his branches of his Missouri State Guard during their early war defense of the federal invasion of Missouri. Kentucky did not have a flag. They redesigned the seal, I believe, in 1861. Arkansas did absolutely nothing until well after the war. Oh, fun fact. Anybody ever seen yeah, I'm a flag joke, so all these facts are fun to me. Anybody ever seen the current Arkansas flag?
Yes.
Okay, it's got 3 stars at the bottom of the flag and one up here, right? 1989. Bill Clinton, I don't know what y'all think about Bill Clinton, but he at least did one good thing, and that was in 1989 when he said this top star up here officially represented the Confederate States of America. So I don't know that he did much else good, but he did that. I'll give him that much credit. National flags. Proposed national flags. The Confederate States of America was officially formed February 8, 1861. Woohoo, hurrah, Confederate Independence Day. At this time, they had not yet approved a design of the flag representing this new country. Please tell a Yankee that too, because it was absolutely a new country. They refused to admit it, but it was. To fix this, they decided to form a committee on the flag and seal. This committee opened up proposals for new flags. There were hundreds proposed that ranged the gamut on simplicity. Some were one color, some were so intricate that it'd probably take the whole war to reproduce a whole mass bunch of them. The choice was narrowed to 4. These 4. The design in the top left ought to look a bit familiar. The top left was designed by the chair of the committee, William Fortune Miles. That particular flag was used a little later on, but we'll get to that later. However, that design was not chosen. That one was. First national flag of the Confederacy, March 4th, 1861. If you didn't know, that's why we call it March 4th, Confederate Flag Day. It's one of 2 reasons. The ladies of Montgomery, boy, they must have been good with some fabric, because I read they sewed this flag in 2 hours. I don't know, I could have done anything but stuck a bunch of holes in my finger in that amount of time. God bless them, they did it though. The Confederate government was bound and determined to have a new flag representing the Confederate States of America flying on top of a flagpole. The reason being, old terrorist Lincoln was elected that day, or excuse me, was inaugurated that day. Their determination prevailed. They got it on a pole. It was put up by Miss Letitia Christian Tyler, who was the granddaughter of President John Tyler, over the Capitol building in Montgomery, Alabama. First national flag of the Confederate States consisted of a red field with a white stripe that equaled 1/3 of the flag through the center, and the blue canton with stars representing how many states were there. The flag was well accepted by some, disliked by others. Fun fact about John Tyler: he was elected to the Confederate House of Representatives. I read that he got sick before he really actually got the time to serve, but he was elected. So when you're in Hollywood Cemetery, please feel free to leave a Confederate flag at John Tyler's grave, regardless of who will see it and think, oh, why is there a Confederate flag at a U.S. president's grave? That doesn't matter. What matters is he's got a Confederate flag on his grave, because when he died, his coffin was draped with a Confederate flag. Back to the flag. The designer of this flag had a lot of sentimental value for his old country and old flag. The United States was disobeying the Constitution. No ifs, ands, or buts, they were. So when the Confederate States left, they kind of wanted to keep their flag. In fact, there was a Confederate senator from Mississippi who said that we should we, being the Confederate States of America, should just straight up steal the U.S. flag and make them get another one, because they were the ones disobeying the Constitution. I think that's kind of funny. Somebody from Mississippi getting all riled up, I can see it now. Started with 7 stars, ended with 13. Also to note the confusion, this flag was never officially adopted. According to the book I read, there was no flag act of Congress. President Davis signed nothing. It was pretty well known that this was the flag. I still call it the national flag, but that's a fun fact. It was never officially adopted. Proposed second national flags. As the love for the old country began to fade, so did the love for their old flag. Pretty easy when, you know, your old country's invading your current country. I can imagine it didn't take long to get all good and riled up at them. This meant it was time for a new flag. April 19th, 1862, Confederate Congress proposed this flag. It was designed after the St. Andrew's Cross, the same cross that was currently being made popular by the Confederate Army of the Potomac. Had a sun-shaped object with 13 points on it representing all the Confederate states. When I was putting this presentation together, I couldn't find this flag online. Nowhere. So I decided I'm going to make one. So I did. And that centerpiece right there, it's got 13 points on it. You got any idea how difficult it is for a country boy like me to make a 13-point sun shape on a computer? It turned out horribly, and about 4 weeks later I found it online, so I just deleted the one I did in shame and used this one. This flag was not adopted, God bless them, because that 13 point star drove me crazy. Spent 2 hours on it, turned out horrible. I was mad the whole time. 1 year later, April 22nd, 1863, Confederate Senate proposed the top flag. The House of Representatives said they didn't like it, so they proposed the bottom flag. And keep these 2 flags in your mind, because I've got some information to tell you in just a second that's not on this presentation. Both of the 2 previous flags were not adopted. Somebody, I don't know who, from the House of Representatives just kind of threw this out there and said, let's lose this one. They didn't like that idea either, but it wasn't until the closing minutes of the first Confederate Congress that this flag was adopted. May 1st, 1863. That is the second national flag. Notice the length. According to the books, it was not your standard 1.5 by 1 flag. It was actually 2 by 1. This flag contained the Army of Northern Virginia battle flag as its canton on a field of pure white representing purity and truth. Keep that in mind too, purity and truth. Similar to how the white field on a Christian flag represented purity and independence. This flag had 2 unofficial nicknames. First, the stainless banner. Simple, white field, stainless. The other one was a bit more sentimental, called the Jackson flag, because of this flag's first official use. Confederate Lieutenant General Thomas Stonewall Jackson died May 10, 1863. The very first second national flag, which was bound and determined to go up on the Capitol building, never made it there, because it was draped on his coffin, as he laid in state in the House of Representative chambers in Richmond, Virginia. I believe that same flag followed him to Lexington. The white field on this flag has recently come under attack because some people say, incorrectly I will say, that this is a flag of white supremacy because of the white field. I can tell you for a fact that is not true. I know that to be true. I know that is a fact because I did the research. Some of you may or may not know I'm writing a book, and in that book I have decided to tackle 3 of the most popular reasons that people said that the war was about slavery or racism or white supremacy or whatever. This was one of the things, because I saw this entirely too much on Facebook. It made me mad, so I did some research. Luckily for me, I only live about 45 minutes from the Library of Virginia. So I went up there on a Saturday morning, and I decided I was going to pull some microfilm rolls of newspapers on the day after, or 2 days after, that flag was adopted, and just see what it had to say. Hopefully I was going to get lucky. Boy, howdy did I. The Richmond Whig newspaper from, I believe it was 2 days after this flag was officially adopted, dedicated a page and a half to this flag. And they had a whole slew of congressmen that were writing stuff and quotes and whatnot. Most of the people on there actually didn't say anything about the symbolism of any of the colors or all that. They just, you know, a lot of them talked about the battle flag. in the corner and all that. But there was 4 or 5 people, and these are 2. Congressman Bolteeler, because it didn't come with the pronunciation. So that's the best that this old country boy from Carson can do. He said, and that's a quote, "The white in the flag signified purity and truth." Congressman Gray of Texas said that the white field signified purity, truth, and freedom. The controversy was over a quote from William Thompson, I believe his name was. He had no authority on this flag. He was an editor of a newspaper, and his quote about the white representing white supremacy was done after the Congress had voted on it. Nowhere in any of the quotes from any congressman, and there had to have been 20 in this newspaper, nowhere in any of them quotes did it say a darn thing about race or a darn thing about white supremacy. Those were the 2 of the 4, and the other 2 didn't say anything about the white flag representing anything other than purity, truth, or freedom. So if somebody tells you that that flag represents white supremacy in a nice, good old-fashioned Southern manner, just send them to the March 3rd, 1863 edition of the Richmond Whig newspaper, where they can find proof otherwise. God bless facts. 3rd national flag. The 2nd national had a wind problem. And I know that to be true too, because I flew one on my phone at the house and I saw real quick fast and in a hurry how that can be messed up. To cure the wind problem, because it looked like a flag of truce, March 4th. Date ring familiar? That's the 2nd reason March 4th is Confederate Flag Day. Davis signed this into law. It was back to the 1.5:1 ratio that we all know and love. The square battle flag of the 2nd national was changed to rectangle. They added a red stripe to cure the looking like a flag of truce problem. Very few of these flags were ever made. Most of them were just redone 2nd nationals, modified to make it look like a 3rd national. This is the last and or current, depending on how you look at it, national flag of the Confederacy. Part 2. Everybody still awake? All right. Part 2. Battle flags and naval flags. Everybody can see. Battle flags. Army of Northern Virginia battle flag. The Confederate Army of Northern Virginia wasn't called the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia when it was originally formed. It's called the Confederate Army of the Potomac, along with the Confederate Army of the Shenandoah. The first major battle for that army was First Manassas, July 1861. This battle showed commanding generals from both sides that the first national flag of the Confederacy and the Stars and Stripes were a bit too similar to be flown on the same battlefield with the dust and bullets and smoke and all that. I've never been on a battlefield, but I can see their theory here. So, General Beauregard's original plan was to get the regiments to use their state flags. Well, that didn't work because regiments from Virginia and North Carolina probably were just about the only ones that could really accomplish that. They're the only ones that had the infrastructure and the delivery method to make a whole slew of flags for all their regiments and get them distributed in a decent amount of time. So Beauregard contacted Miles, the head of the Flag and Seal Committee, asking if the national flag could be changed. He said, nope, not today. So he recommended the flag that they used in March, or that he proposed in March of 1861, which was this flag. General Beauregard liked Miles's flag, red field, blue St. Andrew's cross. General Johnston suggested that the flag be made square, and the only reason I can find for that is because he thought it would be easier to mass produce. I reckon so. I'm a fan of a square. I like square. So that works for me. The following flags were made. Miss Hetty, Jenny, and Constance Carey made the first 3 for General Beauregard, General Johnston, and General Van Dorn. All 3 flags still exist. This flag, if I ever make it down to the Louisiana State Museum, is the one that Jenny Carey made for Beauregard. I don't know that it's still on display or not. It was when I made this presentation. I sure would like to see it because it's some kind of 30. This one was the one made by Miss Hetty Carey for Joseph Johnston. To the best of my knowledge, it is currently in the vault at the former Museum of the Confederacy. I don't know why in the world they would put that one in a vault and display that one. I prefer to display the first one, but this is the one made by Constance Carey for Van Dorn, and last I checked, when I still spent money there, it was on display. Of course, they're probably just gonna drag them out in the street at some point in time, burn them all. General Johnston approved this as the new battle flag of the Confederate Army of the Potomac, September 1863. Was first issued in November of 1863. 12 stars, 12, not 13, representing the 11 Confederate states along with Missouri. A yellow border was made of silk, had a dark blue sleeve that allowed it to slide over the pole. Notice the star grouping closer towards the center, not the ends. Talk about that in a little bit. The silk flags issued in November did not really hold up that well to the conditions they faced in the field, so they required replacement by early 1862. While awaiting the new Richmond Clothing Depot to get their flag making area set up, a cotton flag was issued to the units who needed them. Very few were distributed. According to the description of this flag from the museum website, I found it on it, it's an original cotton flag. As long as they're right, then that's what it is. Once the Richmond Clothing Depot's flag division got going real good, the first wool bunting issue was made and distributed in early 1862. These new flags had some changes made to it. They added a 13th star. They changed the border from yellow to orange. Instead of a blue sleeve, they now had 3 sewn holes. The flag was no longer made of silk. It was made of heavy-duty English wool bunting. The previous flag was the first wool bunting issue. A and B flag. The second wool bunting issue only pretty much had small dimensional changes. The third was used at the Battle of Gettysburg, which is why it's kind of sort of the most popular of the historical flags. This is the digital representation of the third wool bunting issue. The only change from that was it now has white wool. The third wool bunting issue is the style that remained for a good portion of the rest of the war. There were a total of 7 wool bunting issues, and the only changes made between these wool bunting issues was where the stars were. There were small dimensional changes as to the width of the St. Andrew's cross and some minor changes. But by the 7th wool bunting issue, they had pretty much put the stars towards the end of the flag, evenly spaced out as we see them today, which is why the United Confederate Veterans decided to use that flag as their, I assume that's why they decided to use that flag and not 1863 one like this. So that's the one that the Sons used. Infantry was 48, although I read the 4th wool bunting issue was 51. Only a flag dork like me cares about that. Artillery generally used 36 and cavalry used 30. The silk and cotton flags were made by the ladies, God bless the ladies. The wool bunting flags were made by the Richmond Clothing Depot. Starting in June of 1862, it was authorized by the Confederate government to add battle honors. Throughout the years, I've seen the locations of these regimental informations and battle honors have varied widely. The A and B flag is the flag of the soldier, and it is the flag they died defending. This is the reason they cherished this flag after the war, and it is the reason that we, and I say we, I mean me, because I've just recently read that there are some people in the S.C.V. that want to get rid of the battle flag as this logo, and I would like to see them quickly and ushered out of the organization, but that's just my opinion. That's the one that I will fly as long as I am still alive, and I will fight to keep that as the logo of the S.C.V. as it should be. Moving on before I get good and riled up. General Hardee's flag. The S.C.V. is actually now making this flag if anyone cares. The problem with the stars and bars being confused with the stars and stripes wasn't just a problem that Virginia had. It was a problem that every place had. Beauregard wasn't the only general to try to fix it. So, many division and brigade commanders issued unique battle flags to cure the same problem that the A and B flag cured. This was the one that Major General William Joseph Hardee issued his flags for his regiments that he was in command of, the Army of Tennessee. Joe Polk's flag, the S.C.V. now makes this flag too, was issued by Leonidas Polk, the Army of Tennessee. Polk was the Episcopal Bishop of Louisiana, and the emblem of that church is the red St. George's Cross. This is the same red St. George's Cross present on the flag of England. The stars, this one has 11, represented the states. I've seen several with 13. Richard Taylor's flag. Lieutenant General Richard Taylor's forces were using this flag when they recaptured western Louisiana for the Confederacy in 1864. Notice it had no white stripe between the red and the blue. S.C.V. now makes this flag too, by the way. And the S.C.V's one is square. I've seen several of them out there that are rectangular. I thought that was accurate too, according to the guy who made these flags, or these our flags. There's only two of the original Richard Taylor flags left in the world. They modeled one of them. I can't remember the regiment. He told me, but the one the S.C.V. has is square, and it doesn't have a white border either. Braxton Bragg. Some people hate him. Some people just think he's all right. I don't know anybody that really likes him. 1862, Bragg was in command of one corps of the Army of Mississippi. That corps didn't have a battle flag other than their first national, so Bragg cured that problem. His unique battle flag closely resembled the A&B flag, however it had 6 pointed stars instead of 5, and it had a pink border all the way around it. I used to laugh when I saw that pink border, because I'm thinking the whole time, why in the world would an Army commander want pink? But I was told, and I was made to feel stupid because I didn't know it, but I was told that in 1862, pink was a manly color. More power to them. I don't think I look good in pink, so I'll do without. But that's the one that he used. Army of Tennessee battle flag, 1864. Joseph Johnston had recently been given command of the Army of Tennessee after Bragg was beat at Chickamauga. In an effort to boost morale, he gave his Army of Tennessee a singular battle flag amongst all corps. He issued this as the battle flag. It was widely accepted. However, some divisions, I believe it was a lot of Hardy's divisions, kept their flag anyway, probably because they had a bunch of battle honors on it. But that was the Army of Tennessee battle flag. Earl Van Dorn. He's a character. Van Dorn moved his forces west. He wasn't really moved. He was kind of removed. He got into a lot of feuds. So when he got moved west, I guess he was mad at the flag from Virginia too. So he decided to make this flag. That's the only reason I can figure, because I found a reason why he would make something that's so boldly unique. Because boy, howdy, it can't be confused. Completely different than everything else. Magruder's flag. 1862, Confederate forces defending Richmond from an invasion from the Chesapeake Bay were under the command of Major General John Magruder. And they were titled the Army of the Peninsula. That was one of the 3 major armies that merged together to form the Army of Northern Virginia. This was the flag they used, at least that's what I read. I haven't been able to find the original. Until they merged with the Army of the Potomac to form the Army of Northern Virginia. And some people have a lot of feelings about Magruder. I personally like the man. I read in depth what he did to save Yorktown from McClellan, and it was absolutely genius to me, so I got a lot of high respect for that man. Nathan Bedford Forrest. Boy, he can rile up some feelings. I like him too. Lieutenant General Nathan Bedford Forrest. I believe he was the only person on either side to go from private to general, by the way, or at least lieutenant general. It's debated today which state was left out. And I've heard a lot of people who know a lot about flags tell me that just about every state was left out at some point in time. I don't know which one. I don't pretend to know which one. I also don't know why he left a state out. The one that I've heard several reasons about that too. The one I found most probable is that he wanted the enemies to know if they saw a 12-star flag that looked like that, they were going to die. I've heard that was pretty effective too. Battle flag of Missouri. I don't know much about this flag. I've seen real ones though, so I know it exists. Its unofficial nickname is the Battle Flag of Missouri. I don't really know who flew it either, other than Missourians. Cherokee Braves flag, October 7th, 1861. The Confederate government signed a treaty with the Cherokee Nation. This flag was presented to the Native American warriors about to take up arms with their Confederate brethren. Because, you know, I don't have any Native American ancestry, but I can see why they were a little riled up at the federal government. So if I was them, I probably would have took my chances with the Confederacy as well. Also, we had the 5th Brigade commander at my camp who told me something I did not know. He said, he's an expert on Cherokee, and I guess he's fairly well knowledgeable about the rest. But he said that not one Cherokee from either North Carolina or Oklahoma, not one single one of them owned any slaves. So it's plain to me this war was about slavery, because that's what they say. This war was about slavery. Why they don't bother fighting? They don't own any slaves. They don't care. Facts, love them. 11 stars represented the 11 states that were in the Confederacy. At that point, the 5 red stars represented the 5, and that's what they call them, civilized Native American tribes. Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw Creek, and Seminole tribes. This is the one from the Choctaw Brigade. Simple flag, your traditional Choctaw weapons, white circle, red circle, blue field. Sons of Aaron flag. I like to fly this one on the upcoming holiday. I like this flag because it's green, and I think green's pretty. 10th Tennessee Infantry has an Irish harp with shamrocks reading Sons of Aaron on the top and Go Where Glory Waits You on the bottom. This flag flew over a regiment made up almost exclusively of recent Irish immigrants arriving in Nashville, Tennessee. The regiment was formed in April of 1861. Unfortunately, it was surrendered at Fort Donelson in February of 1862. It didn't last long, at least that regiment didn't last very long, but that flag still exists. It's in the Tennessee State Museum, and believe it or not, it is not green, it is yellow now. I was told that that's because whatever it was made out of, green fades to yellow. I don't know, sound pretty accurate. Orphan Brigade flag. This is the flag of the 4th Kentucky Infantry of the 1st Kentucky Brigade. It's also known as the Kentucky Orphan Brigade. It was the Orphan Brigade because, 2 reasons really. Kentucky was not officially a part, Kentucky was officially a part of both countries. It was represented on both flags. I've gotten to arguments that I've gotten to an argument with an old man that gave for 20 minutes because we're both stubborn. He didn't want to back down. He said Kentucky was not part of the Confederacy. I said it is. He said it ain't. We just argued back and forth. Nobody won. But that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that the commander of the 1st Kentucky Brigade was John C. Breckinridge, who was the vice president of the United States when when Kentucky seceded. He went with the Confederacy. He was in command of the 1st Kentucky Brigade. I cannot remember which battle it was at, but I remember reading that Breckinridge came up over a hill, saw that his poor Kentucky soldiers were effectively being slaughtered, and he said, my orphans, what has happened to my orphans? Thus the Orphan Brigade. Texas Rangers flag. I didn't know there was Texas Rangers other than Walker. But this is the flag of the 8th Texas Cavalry. Very similar design to the Army of Northern Virginia battle flag, a few changes. It was common out west, from what I read, that there was no white border. And I'm sure that it was common in Texas to have a big star because, Texas likes to be Texas. Take a guess what that center star represents. I'd be willing to say it's Texas in this flag. Jeb Stuart's cavalry flag. This flag, and I didn't know what this flag was until I saw Susan Hathaway flying this thing. It made me mad because I didn't know what flag it was. And I don't like not knowing stuff. So I took to Google. And this is what I found out. It was the flag of Jeb Stuart's cavalry that was captured by the 5th Michigan Cavalry on his retreat from Gettysburg. I found that this was a flag made by the ladies of Virginia, God bless the ladies, and it was presented to Jeb Stuart's cavalrymen, revived the words of the famous Virginian Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Never found anywhere that sells this flag. I'm guessing she had that one custom made, do you know?
I do not.
I'm pretty sure it is, because I can't find there a place that sells it. I'd buy it if I did. Naval flags. I actually took a whole bunch out of this section, but I left these. Confederate Revenue Service. Revenue Service, now called the Coast Guard. Their duty was to greet ships at the harbor, check the cargo, collect tariffs, check for contraband. They didn't do much, because the Union naval blockade was fairly effective to stop official ships from coming in and out. So if you don't have official ships, then it doesn't really matter if you got a Coast Guard or not. This was a flag. It was a Revenue Cutter Service flag, and it was official till the end of the war, but it didn't get used all that often. I didn't know what this flag was until I went to the National Reunion in Richmond, and there was a big one owned by the Virginia Division hanging down, and I said, "What's that flag?" and that fellow I was sitting next to didn't know. And I asked 5 more people, and none of them knew. And I finally found somebody who knew what it was. He told me what it was, and then when I bought the book Flags of the Confederacy, this was in there. Because boy, I was getting ready to question the people in charge as to why we're flying a French flag.
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought it was. But it ain't, because the blue is a smidgen wider than a French flag. Naval jack. The jack on a naval vessel is only flown on ships of war, and while those ships are in port. In other words, you should never see a jack flying while a ship is sailing or engaged in battle. I have read because it's at the front of the ship, and I guess the commander, the flag would get in the way when he's trying to navigate the waters. I don't know. I'm a civilian. I don't know much about boating. I get motion sickness, so I stay on land. This is the first naval jack. Was used March 4th, 1861 through May 26th, 1863. Just a blue flag with a white circle of stars. Second naval jack, May 26, 1863, the Confederate Navy adopted new regulations that changed the ensign, the commission pennant, and the jack. From that day until the fall of the Confederate Navy, this was the Navy Jack. The flag is very similar, if not identical, to the Army of Tennessee battle flag. This is the most popular and well-recognized Confederate flag to this day. In fact, most people just call this the rebel flag, and I have to correct most people. If you have learned nothing else from this presentation, then I hope that you have learned this. There is truthfully no the Confederate flag. There were many, many, many Confederate flags. Probably hundreds more than I have even covered here. Probably thousands more, really. Brigade and regiment specific flags, they're almost endless. So if you really want to just upset a liberal, then telling you the Confederate flag's racist, just ask them which one, and their heads will normally proceed to explode. The real reason I started doing these presentations is because I've got an ancestor, B.B. Toombs, Company C, 44th Virginia Infantry. And I found his grave, because nobody in my family knew it where it was, knew that it existed. They didn't know he existed until I took to researching. And when I showed up at this grave, it was basically woods. And if any of y'all are my friends on Facebook, you know that I'm pretty adventurous when it comes to finding places. This is one of the two that I know. The other one's even farther out in the woods. But luckily his grave was tended to. April 25th, 2015, we cleaned this place up. Well, somewhat. Because there was trees down everywhere, there was brush everywhere. We're still cleaning it up, actually. I'm just trying to make it to the point where it can be cut with a lawnmower and not poke tires out. This is what it looked like as of October 2015. There are 4 Confederate veterans buried here. My great-great-granddaddy, his 2 brothers, and their brother-in-law. October 10th, we dedicated an Iron Cross at all 4 of them. That was a beautiful service. And most people afterwards, they said, well, don't be a stranger, come on back. I said, y'all don't know me, I ain't done yet. This was just a kind of a victory for what we got so far. I wanted to get the crosses up, and I love services. So we had one, because they didn't think I was coming back. I said, I'll probably be back in a couple months. And I was. There was over 30 unmarked graves here. I know that because of the indentions in the ground and putting head rocks, not stones, rocks. There's probably 7 stones in this cemetery and at least 30 unmarked. So I don't have very much money, so I just did the best I could, and we used wooden stakes until I could figure something out. Because this cemetery is not on the land plat. According to Charlotte County, it's not a cemetery. This fence that you see, this little bitty fence, I have no idea when it was put up, how long it's been there, but it is effectively the only thing to stop this area from being forested. Because when this thing was forested in the mid-1900s, I've been told that they stopped because they saw the fence. And then when they saw the fence, then they saw the stones. So had it not been for this little fence, they would probably just mowed right over them stones, and I'd have never known where great-great-granddaddy's buried. So with that, it has inspired me to try to get a new fence put up. But I'm 27 years old. I'm getting ready to get married, getting ready to build a house or buy a house, and I ain't got no money. So I figured I figured that I'm not going to be a socialist like most of the rest of my generation. I'm going to do what I can to work for my money. So what I have done is come up with these presentations, and all I ask is that if you feel like donating, and you don't have to, don't feel obligated to. If you feel like donating, I would very much appreciate it. If you don't feel like donating, then can you at least give me a prayer or two that I'll get this fence at some point in time? Because I've been told it's gonna cost $6,000 to $8,000, and that's not even for a wrought iron fence, that's just for something that will stop the animals and form a border around this cemetery again. I have almost 1,300 so far, as of last night. So anything you can give me, I would very much appreciate. I'm just gonna pass this around. Like I said, don't feel obligated to donate, but if you do, I thank you very much. And that's all I got. I hope you learned something.